Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Pac-Man here, and I am back for the likes of the Maxi Toys videos. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of Winnie the Pooh's Rumbly Tumbly Adventure for the Game Boy Advance. So, last time, we essentially did manage to fully complete Rue's birthday, and oh and all, that particular birthday stage is also really easy, despite the fact that we did messed up at one point during the forms of the switch combinations, as well as the forms of getting cornered by not only a couple of heffalumps, but also with certain Wurzels as well. But apart from those aside things though, we did that particular birthday just fine. So today, for this video, is about the fact that we're going to be continuing things on and move on to Tigger's birthday next. Now, as far as what Sonic did tell me something about the fact that this is the birthday stage that he did somehow get stuck on back a long time ago. But thankfully though, hopefully we should be able to actually get this no problem, especially noticeable because yet again, we've already experienced the console version of the game already, so we basically know what to do at this point. And something tells me is about the fact that we might able to actually play as the final playable character in this version of the game. Something tells me we might also able to play as Piglet, just like the forms of how it does on the console version, alongside with Piglet's Big Game on the console version, alongside with the Game Boy Advance version as well. So generally speaking, nothing right to hum about, so we can able to notice that we still have to collect some more honey pots as usual. So if you're probably wondering to yourself about the fact that what really happens if you do manage to complete certain birthday stages, if you're probably wondering if you managed to tackle for those stages once, well, as it turns out, you're able to actually access to the time attack mode, which plays pretty self-explanatory. Like, you go for the entire stage again, except the fact that this time around though it appears to be like time-based, and as a result your progression is actually going back all the way to the start. So unlike the forms of how it does it on the console version of the game, alongside with the forms of Piglet's Big Game on the Game Boy Advance version, mind you, you can able to actually replay for the level you want, but unlike in Piglet's Big Game though, there is no way we can able to scare off the forms of not only heffalumps and Wurzels, but same applies with the forms of some weird enemies, like the forms of the Magic Mirror, alongside with the forms of this particular tree monster, and you probably named the rest of it. So because of that though, yeah, here's the thing about this though, I don't think it's possible we can able to show off the time attack mode, just because it's nothing right to hum about, especially noticeable because unlike in Piglet's Big Game on the Game Boy Advance version, that basically though, it feels like an accomplishment, especially noticeable because I'm pretty sure that if you do manage to tackle for one of those time attack stuff, I don't think it actually gives you a password feature or anything else like that if you manage to complete a time attack version of that specific stage alone. So yeah, I don't think it's possible. Oh, are you kidding me? I was literally so close to pop that red balloon. Stupid hit detection, as well as the forms of the depth perception as well. So I wasn't thinking straight, so there we go. Oh man, that was unexpected, especially noticeable because I was potentially trying to able to go right near to where the balloon is, but chances are the Heffalump B just somehow caught me off guard. So, oh well, no big deal. So anyway, a few things I want to talk about this, and that's what appears to be about the fact that, well, today's date, of course, is the 13th of April today, in some cases in 2024 today. So, naturally speaking, there are a couple of things I would like to point things out. First of all, is about the fact that, as a result, that Maxi, he's almost finishing up everything for Sonic the Hedgehog 2006 so far, and generally speaking, is that recently, that Tiana, she's actually going to be continue playing through Princess Peach Showtime, and it's a good coincidence that the reason why that Tiana, she's decided able to do that game is most likely because of, Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door on Switch is getting closer to its release, and by that time though, it's about the fact that we've only just got about, I would classify for saying, let's just say, like, we've only got exactly, like, I don't know, 40 days to go or something? Well, mind you, I haven't exactly double-checked on my calendar for the sake of time for quite a while. So, and also not to mention, though, is about the fact that, relatively speaking, though, is about the fact that we actually got ourselves some, new information for the sake of the forms of not only certain films, but also about the forms of some merchandise as well, and of course, video games as well. So, I was originally trying to able to explain one of those particular games coming up, But let's just say about the fact that it's probably best if we let Maxie will mention more about it. If he goes back onto the forms of Sonic the Hedgehog 2006, so potentially speaking, he's now on to the final piece of DLC. That's what appears to be very hard missions in the forms of Shadow the Hedgehog. So, and relatively speaking, he'll save that particular topic until at some point. So, because potentially speaking, it's about the fact that now if you're probably wondering about the fact that in regards to the forms of what is happening in the forms of certain games recently, well, before I get into more details onto that specific topic though, let's get into the forms of another set of anniversaries has just been happened. Like, for instance, is about the fact that recently, that today is the forms of, well, like I said before, that today is the forms of the 13th of April, like I said before. This means about the fact that recently, it's been 25 years ago since that particular Digimon animation, which as a result been first appeared since in joining forms have been 1999. So yeah, time flies, doesn't it? Especially noticeable concerning for the fact that it shows us the forms of the entire retrospective in terms of the forms of the Digimon animated series, ranging from Digimon Adventure 1 as well as Adventure 2 and vice versa. Well, mind you, I haven't exactly watched that much of Digimon anime back then, especially noticeable because I'm pretty much into like Pokemon anime during that some form or another, assuming if, of course, about the fact that I've always remembered Ash Ketchum alongside with Pikachu as well, just because every now and then things have been changed, and as a result, sometimes changes can be a bit of a struggle at one point, especially noticeable after realizing about the fact that, well, they have to like replace the character, as well as the forms of replacing specific important aspects about the forms of what makes Pokemon animated series so great in the first place, and maybe some occasional movies as well, because mind you, no matter what though, it's been like almost 3 years ago since we've last had the previous Pokemon movie, and that's what appears to be Pokemon The Secrets of the Jungle, because that was the current film they actually got for the likes of the Pokemon movies recently, which as a result we still have no idea when does the sequel to Detective Pikachu is going to be coming. Well, chances are though, yeah, it's a bit difficult to tell, because as far as I'm usually concerned about the fact that recently we've actually got ourselves a full confirmation for the sake of the forms of some films recently. Like for instance, is about the fact that apparently though, Monopoly live-action movie is going to be able to produce. Like, to be more specifically, Megard Robbie will produce the Monopoly live-action film. So yeah, this seems kind of interesting because I already know about her ever since in the Barbie movie, which, truth be told, that because obviously that, you know, just to be curious and all that stuff, to able to check that film out, and yeah, you probably get the idea for that. So, it is also worth noting for is about the fact that we actually got ourselves our first logo for the likes of the upcoming SpongeBob movie until 2025, mind you. That's what appears to be none other than the SpongeBob movie Search for SquarePants, and from the look of the logo itself, it's alright. I mean, usually, relatively speaking, though, it shows the forms of Search for SquarePants as being crafted by, let's just say, like a wooden sword or something like that. So, yeah, that's actually kind of a cool touch. At least I've noticed that already. Well, mind you about the fact that we still have to wait until specifically the Sandy Cheeks movie with the forms of saving Bikini Bottom first. So, but for what I've heard, for the sake of the forms of some reviewers out there, it was actually quite of a disappointment, which as a result, then again, we're not going to get into further details onto this just yet, because despite the fact that we're not exactly at summer just yet, although usually relatively speaking, because obviously that particular film is going to be exclusive to Netflix, so, and I'm pretty sure about the fact that when it comes to Search for SquarePants, unlike in Sponge on the Run, that Sponge on the Run was actually on Netflix to begin with, due to the forms of you-know-what, and relatively speaking, I was about the fact that let's just hope about the fact that with the forms of the next SpongeBob movie, despite the fact that my expectations might be a little bit lower compared to the forms of how it does it on the first film, because to me though, the first film, it was pretty iconic in my opinion, especially noticeable because, gee, no wonder why, that this year will mark the 20th anniversary of the film's release of not only the SpongeBob SquarePants movie, but also with the films of Shrek 2, alongside with the films of some other films as well later down the road. So, yeah, generally speaking, I am a little bit more excited able to actually try to able to celebrate certain anniversaries for certain films that I seem to able to enjoy, well, back in the day that is. So either way, so yeah, just like the forms of how it does on the console version, as you can see, that there is no way we can able to actually walk for this particular narrow path right there, because something tells me we do need Piglet, but here's the catch, we do need to catch butterflies. So yeah, just like in the console version, and except the fact that we do need to fetch a catching net. So, exponentially speaking, sometimes I will admit though right away that Tigger's birthday in this particular version of the game is by far the longest stage we can able to actually experience so far. Just because no matter what though, it's going to be a lot of emphasis on backtracking, and on top of all that stuff though, like what I said this before, that this is the only stage back then that we usually got stuck on. So, relatively speaking, it won't be too much of an issue. So, yeah, relatively speaking, we've somehow got the bell, and as a result, now we need to place the bell right over there, so we can able to ring the bell to, well, get Al out. So, and generally speaking, before I get into that though, we need to collect some more honey pots, so just in case we do need some more, just in case if there are some bees around, and why the heck did I somehow just can't accept with this particular item usage? Well, thankfully we can now use that, potentially speaking, because then again, just like in Piglet's Big Game, there might be a couple of times on the Game Boy Advance version where I swear I was directly right at the sparkle bit, but then chances are though is about the fact that I can never seem to able to get that hit detection correct. So, yeah, it's a bit of a bummer though, but either way. So now we've actually got the catching net, or a butterfly net I should say. So this means we can now able to actually check on Eeyore. So just to ensure about the fact that now is a possibility we can now able to catch butterflies, so that we can use the butterflies as items for Piglet. So just to ensure we can able to actually play as him, well, generally speaking, is about the fact that we should probably explain about this right about now. Just like the forms of how it does on the console version of the game, I'm pretty concerned about the fact that you're only going to be playing as, you know, Piglet for about 3 times, and compared to Tigger though, I'm pretty sure you can only play as him for about, I would say also 3 times, and as far as Eeyore is concerned, I'm pretty concerned you play as him for about a grand total of, I don't know, 5 times or something like that. Well, mind you, it's been about 6 days ago since I actually have last played this game for sure. Just because no matter what though, recently, I've managed able to actually go back into Super Smash Bros. Brawl again, and as a result, yes, I finally managed able to claim myself my final golden hammer, and what do I use it for? Well, originally though, I was gonna able to try to use the last golden hammer for the sake of the forms of trying to able to achieve clear 100-man brawl with all characters, because let me tell you, I would say that challenge is pretty tedious to me. Well, nothing even compares to the forms of how it does it for collecting all of the stickers, because my god, it requires a lot of grinding, and on top of all that stuff though, it's a lot more tedious as it is. So, and also it's incredibly luck-based as well. So, relatively speaking though, because of how the fact that I was desperately able to achieve all of those challenges throughout in Super Smash Bros. Brawl, just like how I did for the likes of almost to a point for the 3DS installment, and as well as the forms of Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, which I did somehow manage to achieve every single achievement, because thanks to the forms of the hammer system, as well as the forms of additional challenges for online mode. So, yeah, relatively speaking, I was about the fact that we can able to exponentially trying to able to actually get away with the forms of some of the remaining parts as it is. So, anyway, so now we've actually got ourselves the butterfly, so now we can able to talk to Piglet, so now we can able to actually take control of him for, you know, approximately twice for the sake of the forms of Tigger's birthday as it is. So, anyway, oh yeah, let's talk about the forms of another topic at this point, and that's what appears to be about the fact that it actually, as it turns out, is about the fact that, well, the live-action Naruto film is officially in the works. So, I'm a little bit optimistic about this, because obviously, after the events of 2009, where basically though, back in that particular year, usually they somehow released the only live-action Dragon Ball movie called Dragon Ball Evolution, and it really sucks. Especially noticeable while looking back on it though, it is nothing compared to the forms of how it does it for this iconic anime. So that's just for my honest opinion anyway, but I'm sure enough though about the fact that you probably already noticed that how, you know, Dragon Ball Evolution as the film itself sucks. So anyway, so as you can see, we're able to take control of Piglet, just like the console version of the game, as well as Piglet's big game. And as it turns out, as you probably couldn't tell, that we've already did manage to deal with the forms of the only Heffalump in during the forms of that specific segment. And basically though, just like in the game, just like the forms of how it does it on the console version, alongside with the Game Boy Advance version of Piglet's Big Game as well. To be more accurate though, the Game Boy Advance version of Piglet's Big Game, that is usually able to actually encounter the forms of not only several of Heffalumps as well as Wurzels, you're able to actually go into the forms of Scare-Face battle sequence. So basically though, much like the forms of how it does it on Piglet's Big Game on the Game Boy Advance version, you have to able to input the correct button combinations, because once you're able to done with that, obviously you will able to actually scare off not only Heffalumps, but also with Wurzels as well. So generally speaking, though, it's self-explanatory, and I'm pretty sure that just like in the console version of this game, basically though, is about the fact that we only going to be able to see some little amount of those scary faces, no matter what though, so chances are though we can able to expect able to not offer too much content. So anyway, so we somehow found the first of the two Tigger costumes, and I think something tells me it will once again reference the forms of the Tigger movie, I'm pretty sure, because of all the picture frame and what have you. So anyway, the next thing I want to point out as well, and that's what appears to be about the fact that recently that they somehow bring out a whole bunch of merchandise, and it's about to be coming out soon for the likes of the forms of the Year of Shadow merchandise. So specifically with all these, I'm not gonna lie, some pretty cool t-shirts ranging from Fearless Year of Shadow logo, as well as the forms of Sonic and Shadow in that particular shot, which I think is actually pretty cool. And in addition to the forms of the Ultimate Power, Fearless of Shadow with the forms of Fearless, the Year of Shadow within like the red version, but there's also the black version as well, and also they able to show us Shadow's face on it. And finally, with the forms of this particular iPhone case, which also features Sonic and Shadow, which also features Fearless Year of Shadow. So yeah, it definitely deserves to be the Year of Shadow indeed, just because no matter what though, like what Maxi has already mentioned about this several times already, that it's actually pretty awesome about the fact that we're able to actually get some more content for Shadow the Hedgehog during the forms of this whole entire year. So anyway, let's get into the forms of another topic at this point, and something tells me is that according to Attacker72, they did say about the fact that the Five Nights at Freddy's 2 film has now officially confirmed to release pretty soon in the fall of 2025. So yeah, it seems kind of interesting because we've already got the first film back in last year, so something tells me we also gonna have to wait until next year in 2025 for the second film of Five Nights at Freddy's movie, just like the forms of how it does it on not only Fast 11, but also with the forms of Mission Impossible 8, assuming if they're able to actually confirm the actual official title. Well, then again though, we have to wait and find out and join at some point in the future. So, oh, and also some bad news to tell you for this point, guys, is that there's this let's just say a former football star that, you know, captures the attention of the world in the 90s. There's this person called J.O. Simpson. Unfortunately, though, he passed away recently due to the forms of cancer. So because of that, though, yeah, it's pretty sad, though, especially noticeable because, well, you know, it's a bit difficult to explain. But luckily, though, we got ourselves the forms of some other game discussions I would like to point things out. First of all, let's just say that recently, Pac-Man Mega Tunnel Battle Chomp Champs has recently got confirmed its release date alongside with the new trailer as well. Now, I'm going to mention about the forms of the release date in general, because I haven't exactly paid attention to the forms of the actual trailer as much. Well, relatively speaking though, I should probably explain more about it in a moment, because now we can able to take control of Piglet again, so we can able to potentially try to scare off some even more in fact, kind of think about it, for that particular sprite of the forms of not only the scary faces are directly ripped out from the likes of the forms of, well, let's just say that it is actually a very identical sprite from the likes of in Piglet's Big Game on the Game Boy Advance, basically. The only time is a little bit different this time is the forms of the background. So even then, the background itself, it's just all about the purple void of background, and there's nothing else to it. So because of that though, yeah, because unlike in Piglet's Big Game on the Game Boy Advance though, they did manage to able to offer us the forms of some unique backgrounds depending on what world you go into. So that's always something. So and of course, just like the forms of how it does it on when you play as Tigger at one point in this particular version of the game, you can't able to actually explore around in the 100 Acre Wood, so we have to go through a linear progression. So just to ensure for the fact that, oh, look at this, we've actually come across into a hide-and-seek Woolsall, or specifically Barrel Woolsall, which I know for a fact that it's been about a year ago since we've last played Piglet's Big Game on the Game Boy Advance, but that's just mainly because at this point in time that I was really looking forward to able to wrap things up everything for the sake of the forms of some gaming series in general, like Super Monkey Ball, before we move on to the next set of franchise that I was really looking forward to doing Let's Plays of, and much more. So even then, yeah, that basically does it for playing as Piglet. So now we can able to explore into the snowy mountains, just like the forms of how it does on the console version of the game. So relatively speaking though, it's able to try to find the second and the final Tigger costume, basically. So anyway, the release date for the Pac-Man Megatonal Battle Chomp Champs is going to be releasing until 9th of May in this year in 2024. So yeah, that's as far as I can try to able to explain about that. Now I'm pretty sure it's about the fact that it's going to be digital only, so I won't be too surprised about that, I must be honest here. And there's also another game that's also going to be confirmed for its release date as well, and that's what appears to be known as Monster Jam Showdown, and it's actually been confirmed it's going to be coming until in August, specifically the 29th of August in this year as well. So generally speaking, there are quite a few interesting things I would like to point things out. Although, as far as at this point in time, is about the fact I don't think it's possible we can able to mention about other topics for right now, because I've already explained quite a few bits here and there. So either way, so of course we're gonna have to able to shove this particular ice cube, so that way we can able to hopefully try to progress. But then again, sometimes the depth perception really messes me up beyond belief. So there might be, again, a couple of times where the fact that the actual shoving objects is not as easy as it looks, because unlike the console version, that the depth perception is perfect. So either way, so we're just gonna have to able to try our best to be able to just, you know, deal with it, I guess. So, and that way we should now go across. And exponentially, once we collect some even more honey pots, and that's about it basically. So either way, all we have to do left now is of course trying to able to feed some more honey pots to the bees, so that way we can able to get the second and the final costume for the sake of the forms of Tigger's birthday. And now, all we have to do now is just basically we have to talk to Kenga, and I suppose that'll be about it. So either way, and there's also another thing I want to point out as well. I'm a little bit annoyed about the fact that recently that my new laptop is still suffering the forms of the amount of slowdown. To be more specifically, if I don't charge my laptop completely, then basically though is about the fact that if my laptop battery decides to deplete, basically though the thing itself decides to lag at one point, which I think it pretty much does the exact opposite compared to the forms of how it does on the old laptop that we used to have. Well, relatively speaking though, it does take a bit while to get used to, especially noticeable because relatively speaking though, as you can tell, I believe something tells me we've somehow obtained every single honey pot. So, to be more specifically, enjoy the forms of in Tigger's birthday stage. So, and as far as I'm aware, we're now on to the halfway point in terms of the forms of this version of the game already. So chances are though, because like I said before, this version of the game is going to be super duper short, especially noticeable because with the lack of cutscenes and all that stuff. So either way, that'll scare off the rest of the forms of some Heffalumps and Wuzzles there. Although then again though, we have to be able to deal with them all before you've progressed. So, and as it turns out, I just got cornered, so I think, come on! That stupid little rock is in the way! Because then again, the depth perception in this version is very questionable, so I'll have to be honest for this point, so that's not gonna work, because obviously, thanks to the forms, the running speed is a little bit, you know, kind of slow. But either way, let's just, there we go. Now we've actually just somehow managed to get those Wuzzles get distracted, and now we can pop the balloon. So, oh wait, that was quite a lot of backtracking moments here and there. But, thankfully, we somehow made our way to Kenga, and that's it. So, of course, the actual image is heavily borrowed from the likes of the Tigger movie, with all that Tigger costumes for not only for Pooh, but also with Owl, Kangaroo, Piglet, and Eeyore. So yeah, you probably get the idea of what that particular image looks a bit familiar to you, especially just like the console version. So either way, that basically does it for Tigger's birthday. So we've only got 2 birthdays to go, and that'll be about it for the entire version of the game. So with that being said, folks, is that we got the endings off this point right here. So join me tomorrow for more Let's Play of Winnie the Pooh's Rumbly Tumbly Adventure for the Game Boy Advance version, and that's what appears to be about the fact that we're going on to Eeyore's birthday. So thankfully it won't be nearly as lengthy as I've hoped, but we shall see. So I'll see you guys until tomorrow. Later, fellas.